What's up guys, and welcome back to the next episode of this canopy fit out project. I'm really happy with how everything is progressing so far. Obviously we tackled that 12 volt setup in the last episode, which is all installed and working well. But today the next project on the list is to sort out a bit of a kitchen build in this area between the fridge and the pantry. And for that I've been down to my local Bunnings and I've pretty much solved them out of all their aluminium pieces. And I've also picked up a new Coleman Hyperflame stove for the fit out as well. I've chosen to make this build out of aluminium to try and find a balance between something that's lightweight but also nice and strong and durable that's going to stand the test of time. So my basic plan for this setup has changed a little bit since my planning video I released a few weeks ago, as I knew it would, but the current plan is essentially a 3-stage setup. So on the very top layer there'll be a small permanent bench mounted just here with some food storage up on top. Underneath there's going to be a 1 meter pull-out bench top to give me plenty of food prep area when I'm out camping. Underneath that bench there's going to be a small cupboard to store bin liners and other small bits and pieces like that. And then on the very end of the bench there's going to be another 700mm extension which is going to have the cooker permanently mounted inside. So that's the rough plan. The first obstacle I have to overcome is I want this all mounted really flush and kind of making the most of this space. But of course, when I mount things as really close to the fridge and the pantry, I can't get into those edges to do up bolts or insert screws. To solve this problem, my plan is to use this 50mm box tube once again to lift the kitchen build up high enough that it can clear that canopy lip. I'll mount these pieces in the canopy running widthways, essentially. So imagine the fridge is here and then the pantry is here. Canopy door opens like that. I've then bought some 50 by 30mm box and I'm essentially going to use this as a bit of a middleman. So I'm going to screw one of these on each side of those pieces. There'll be 3 of these 50mm box tube pieces. And then I can attach this to these floor beams from the top. I can then attach the drawer runners from the inside here, and then the surrounding kitchen build I can attach from the top. So I won't need to access these sides for anything. It might not make a lot of sense me trying to explain it on the bench like this, so I'll go and get it installed and hopefully it will make some more sense. There we go, the new frame for the kitchen build is officially finished and I'm pretty happy with the result. I really took my time to make sure it was perfectly straight before I tightened all those bolts, because with drawer runners, especially the heavy duty set we're going to be using, you really don't have much wiggle room and you have to get them pretty dead straight for them to work properly. Because if they're trying to open kind of away from each other or towards each other, it's just not going to work. I'm really seeing the benefit of aluminium too, because that's a pretty decent size frame. Ridiculously strong, but it's so lightweight, and that's what you want for a setup like this. And especially with all the extra weight that's going to be going on top of this setup, keeping at least the frame nice and light is a massive bonus. I decided to use my stepped drill bit to make some of these bolt holes a bit easier to access, and that has allowed me to drop the bolt in from the top instead of putting it in the end, chasing it the whole way down, and then trying to line it up through that hole. And if you're wondering how to get the bolt to go through that hole and line up with the hole underneath, I just used a magnet, stuck the bolt on the end, and that allowed me to lower it through nice and easy. I also made up some 5mm MDF risers to go on the bottom of those supports, and that's just going to lift the whole frame up so that when I put the draw runners on, they're going to easily clear this canopy lip. Now, you're never going to see these things where they're going to be positioned, but it just felt wrong putting exposed wood in the canopy, so I did give them a quick coat of black paint to make them look a little bit nicer, but again, you're never going to see them. So the next step is going to be to get this frame mounted in the canopy, attach those new draw runners, and then the fun part can begin. Okay, I've got that base frame all mounted in the canopy and it's nice and strong, and I've also gone ahead and mounted my draw runners as well. So these draw runners aren't mucking around. I've gone for Dun & Watson's Titan series. They've got a weight rating of 227 kilos, which is nuts. They were a bit pricey, about $200 for the set, but I'm really just hoping they're going to stand the test of time. And that weight rating is ridiculous. Like, I should be able to put over 100 kilos of weight on this one runner, and I don't even weigh 100 kilos, so just crazy. Now, because I've had to raise these runners up to clear that canopy lip, it has created a bit of space here underneath the floor area. So you guys know I don't like wasting space, and I'm trying to think of how I can use that area. As a side note, it is the perfect size for things like my old frying pan box. That would fit under there nicely. So early thoughts are going to be to create a bit of a hinge system on that very top layer of the bench. It's not going to be the most convenient space to access because the bench will have to be fully out of the way, but at least I'm not wasting that space. Anyway, that's a problem to solve for another day because that's all I wanted to get done for now, just get these runners installed on that new frame. So we'll pick this up another day. Alrighty, we are on to phase 2 of this slide out kitchen build, and the next step is going to be to make up a basic frame for the outermost section of the kitchen. It might seem a bit backwards starting from the outside and working in, but right now I've got nice easy access into these channels that I'll need to mount that outside frame to, so that's the reason I'm choosing to do that step first. To make this frame and also all the rest of the kitchen build, I'm going to be using connected aluminium. Now, if you're not familiar with connected aluminium, you can buy it from Bunnings or other hardware stores like that. It's essentially 25 by 25mm box tube. Actually, it's a little bit more, about 25.4mm. You can get it in 2 colors. I've gone for the black for this build, and then you also buy all these joiner pieces. So they make these in all different shapes and sizes. Like this one is a bit of a 3-armed one, but you also get right angles, T-pieces, joiners that go every direction, and all sorts. So essentially, you take your connector, you buy the length you need for all the pieces, chop it down to size, and then connect it together using these joiners. You kind of bash them in with a hammer and they really stay in place pretty well. So some people, me included, might be wondering as to the strength of a build using this connected aluminium, but I used it for the kitchen build in the Ranger and it's lasted 3 or 4 years without any faults. So now I'm just going to double check all my measurements for this outside frame, cut my connector down to size, and then bash it all together. Okay, my frame is all complete. I honestly love working with Connect It. Just makes these projects so much quicker and easier. You get all your angles perfectly square and I don't have to put any screws in at all. So I've just been through and pulled off all the various barcode stickers from every single piece, which takes forever. It's my least favorite part of projects like this, but we're all done. So let's chuck it in and make sure it fits. There we go, fits like a glove. Now, I have just realized that I've forgotten a pretty important step, which was to drill some large holes in this bottom piece so I can actually get some screws through and attach it to the bottom frame. So unfortunately, that means I now have to pull this out, separate these connected joints, and then drill those holes. As it turned out, with the help of my right angle attachment, I was able to drill the holes without separating the frame. So ran into a couple of hiccups. The first was not having those holes drilled for the screws to drop in from the top. Got those sorted, got it all installed, and then realized that I'd stuffed up my measurements. So I allowed enough space for the stove to slide in between the draw runners and this top. Completely forgetting that there was a second bench top underneath that the stove also had to go under. So I had to pull the whole thing out again. These were my original vertical supports. You can see they're about 2 centimeters lower than the current versions. Got those new versions reinstalled and yeah, got it all bashed back together. But the whole frame is installed nice and solid and I'm very happy with it. The next step is going to be to make up the framework for this slide out bench. And then of course the little cooker area on the end. So back to the bench and back into the Connect It. Alrighty, the frame for the slide out bench is complete. I really took my time to get all these measurements spot on because even if it's a couple of millimeters out, it's not going to slide in properly on those runners. I'm probably not as far along with this project as I was hoping to be by now. A couple of those hiccups have delayed things, but at least everything that's gone in is to a pretty high standard. Well, as good as I can do anyway. So the next step is to get this installed on those runners. So the kitchen is starting to take shape with the main bench unit installed on those runners and it slides out nicely, giving us a 1 meter bench top. And I've then gone ahead and installed the second layer of draw runners as well. So these give us an extra 700 mils and that's what my cooker is going to be installed on. So yeah, it gives us a 1.7 meter total extension, which is pretty crazy, especially when the whole canopy is only 1.8 meters, and definitely making me glad I invested in those heavy duty draw runners. So the next step is going to be to make up a simple platform for the cooker to be mounted to, again using my trusty connected aluminium, and I better get cracking because it's already past 7 and I don't want to be a bad neighbor grinding too late at night. And with that, phase 1 of this kitchen build is complete, the skeleton structure, if you will. How cool is that? I am really stoked with how this has turned out. And now we're ready to move on to the fun part of this project, which is of course getting some bench tops made up for here and here, getting that cooker installed, sorting out some food storage, as well as some cupboards and hidey holes. But it's getting late, so I'm gonna wrap up this episode there. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys really soon for the rest of this kitchen build.
That's what I'm doing.